You can create your own joy list and your own joy calendar. And there's nothing better than watching someone else have joy and having someone cranky look at them and be like, well, I want some of that.
Meet Lisa Even, a former healthcare executive who turned burnout into a movement, helping leaders track joy like a KPI and build success without sacrificing happiness.
Well, if you don't want joy, that's not a problem. Like, no problem at all. And almost act like not a big deal. It's good. I had one woman who sent me a card in the mail and she goes, I attended your session, went home that night and said to my husband, we're either getting a divorce or we're getting a joy calendar. What do you want?
What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Van Orn back with another edition of the Scaling Up Success Podcast. Today, I want to thank our sponsor, Synergist, for being our sponsor, making sure that we're getting taken care of on that side. Make sure you go to Synergist.com for all of your scalable AI operational needs. They'll help you at a fraction of the cost. Synergist.com. Today, I have Lisa Even on, and she's a speaker, author, extraordinaire. She's got all kinds of stuff happening. Lisa, how the heck are you doing today?
I am good. I am just back from Florida, so it was warm there. I live in Iowa and it's cold here. So on the one hand, I'm like, I'm feeling rested and relaxed, just freezing.
You know, it's so interesting as you tour around the country. You're like, there are some places I don't want to go during the summer, and then there's some places I don't want to go in the winter.
It's so true.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, tell us a little bit about your business that you got going on. I know you got the speaking side, you got the coach
Yeah.
side, all of those things. Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, so my background is in leadership. So I was a leader in healthcare for a number of years. And when I left corporate healthcare, I decided to go out on my own. I thought I was going to do leadership training only. I did that for a couple of years, and I had a friend who said, hey, we're looking for a speaker at our conference. I tried to think of like who has energy and would be interesting to listen to and could teach us a few things. And so about 2.5, 3 years ago, moved into the speaking thing as well. So I go around the country doing keynote speaking, leadership training, and it has been a wild and fast and furious ride.
That's awesome. And in those regards, it's a making those connections is so, it's so eye-opening. It's a challenge at the same time. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I saw a video recently and I literally was like, oh my gosh, this is me. And the video was this person, basically their TikTok channel is for like young people to learn how to communicate because, I have a 14-year-old and he's constantly on his phone. And he said if I could give any like younger person advice, I would tell them talk to everyone. Like talk to the
Right.
guy in the elevator, talk to the guy at the coffee shop. And I tell you what, that's literally how my business kind of got off the ground. I started my business about 6 months before COVID. We had just moved to a new city and a new state. And so I didn't know, a lot of people. And I started to do this thing where I'm like, hey, who do you know that wants to talk about leadership? Like, do you have friends or do you have a boss that I would love some perspective on leadership? I came up with 5 or 6 questions and I said, I'm just looking to interview, leaders, people who have a thought on leadership. And, 10 people gave me 10 people, gave me 10 people. And by the end of COVID, I had done 300 or so virtual coffees. And I think about what you said in terms of connections. It's like, never look at someone and think, oh, they don't know someone, because they know someone.
Right.
Someone knows
Right.
someone who knows someone.
Exactly. When I was building in real estate like 10 years ago, I started in Colorado and I said, I want to be the I got a guy.
Yeah, I got a guy. Oh, I might have to steal that. Like, I got a girl.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Perfect.
like I had, like the plumbing and the electrician and the roofing company and the general contractor and like, if they needed something, I was the connector. When I
Yeah,
became the connector, then you became the asset as far as the real estate transaction. So,
yeah.
it's really interesting, and it that doesn't necessarily change depending on the genre of business that you're in.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I think it actually, if you can do it everywhere and anywhere you go in any part of your life, whether it's like building a friendship or finding, new hobbies, I think it goes across the board.
One of the things that I find so fascinating, especially in the entrepreneurial mindset, and then especially when you're talking about like conferences and networking and stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me about a time that, because I know you probably have on these. It's like you just got yourself involved into a conversation that you didn't know that you were going to go on a little tangent that just took your business in a whole new direction that you didn't think possible.
Well, I always go with like the one conversation that I think about that went in a completely different direction and has made me actually some really, really great revenue was about 8 years ago. My husband and I were sitting on the couch one night and I looked at him and I was just exhausted. And we had little kids. We were both climbing the ladder, doing all the things. And the conversation was really, if you were sitting there with us on the couch, it looked like me basically complaining to him saying, I just think we have too much on our calendar. We're overscheduled. I want to see something else on our calendar other than our responsibilities. And that conversation, I was kind of just like, I don't know. I think if we keep saying to ourselves, well, after this project or after the kids sleep through the night or after, we're kind of pushing fun or joy off.
Right,
I think we will get to the end of our lives and like look backwards and be like, oh shoot, we missed it. Like we were supposed to
right,
have like fun back there. And that conversation ultimately ended up by me saying, just not very kind of nonchalant, like, I just want to make joy my job. And my husband's like, okay, well, how do we do it? And fast forward, we hung a whiteboard in our bedroom. We now track our joy like a bank account. It's basically our KPI for our family. And I've written a book and I have a workbook out on Amazon. And I think back to the apartment that we were living in, and I just think like, who would have thought that that conversation would have led to an experiment, which would have led to a whole, pillar in my business?
you know what I find funny? One person that I tremendously respect and follow a lot is Dan Martell.
Yeah.
He's a author of Buy Back Your Time and a couple
Yeah.
other books like that. And one of the things that he's talked about was like basically like putting you and your spouse through like holding the accountability piece to the relationship. Like how are we doing? Like actually,
Yeah.
like having those conversations, running it kind of like as a business meeting itself.
Yeah,
What's
it
your
is.
thoughts on that?
It's funny that you say that because I like just for example, the joy topic does really well in like women's conferences, women's groups. I'll do it for corporate retreats and holiday parties and things where people are either wanting to celebrate joy or like create more of it. And I always talk to these different groups about how, first order of business is get a joy list. Like if I asked you like, Ryan, what are three things you like to do for joy? And you're like, well, I haven't done anything fun in a while. I'm like, that's like order number one. And then I always say, order number two, get it on your calendar, start measuring it. And then once a month, my husband and I sit down and we have a staff meeting around joy. And we literally have usually like a drink in hand and almost in like a British accent. We're like, do we have enough joy? Like, do we need to add some? And it becomes the most fun thing that we do. And it's light and it just makes us kind of look at our life and say, like, if I want to be really productive and I want to be really successful in my business, he works in healthcare, we've got to schedule it in.
How important was that to be on the same page with your spouse on that piece as well? Because like some people have that same interaction and it's like taken in a different connotation.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you're an idiot for talking
Yeah,
like
like what?
like this. Like why are we doing it this way? Like why can't we just live and like
Yeah.
instead of having like productive conversations about your relationship?
So what I often will tell people is, let's say you've got a spouse or a friend or, a sibling that you're like, they could really use a little joy. Like, right? Like you're like, they're semi-cranky. I don't know. And they're not into it, right? They're pushing back. Usually what I'll tell people is you can create your own joy list and your own joy calendar. And there's nothing better than watching someone else have joy and having someone cranky look at them and be like, well, I want some of that. So sometimes you have to almost like model it a little bit to say like, well, if you don't enjoy, that's not a problem. Like no problem at all. And almost act like not a big deal. It's good. And it's funny. I had one woman who sent me a card in the mail and she goes, I attended your session, went home that night and said to my husband, we're either getting a divorce or we're getting a joy calendar. What do you want? And they went on 8 or 9 different joy dates. And I can just imagine, I've not met her husband, but I can just imagine like her dragging him, down the road. And it was funny because a couple of months later, she was like, we went on 9 joy dates. and it has changed our entire lives. And I'm like, that's what it's about. Like, joy has to be your job because no one else is going to show up and create it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. That's really like empowering
Yeah.
for others to hear. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. So like as you've seen, like our business industry is like shifted many times in the last
Yeah.
5 years from COVID and bounced back to other things, and now it's moving in a different direction. How do you help business owners stay in front of all of this craziness and navigate these rapids of business, the on the river of
Yeah.
life right now?
Yeah, we're kind of in this like rocking ship of just like one wave after another. And so I started my career as a project manager, so I tend to be fairly organized and I'm often thinking about like the time blocking on my calendar. If you're like me, or maybe if you're like, gosh, I kind of want to be like that, I often look at my calendar and I think, okay, there's got to be a portion of time that I have to work on the now. Right? The things that are going on and functioning in day-to-day business. And there's got to be a spot on my calendar to run some experiments. So I'm continuously doing a little bit of like carved out time where I try something creative and innovative and new. And I basically almost imagine myself with like geeky goggles, like science goggles. And I'm like, I am going to live in the lab because if I am not living in the lab and running some experiments that probably should and might fail, we're not going to be able to evolve and be nimble in today's world. And so it's almost like you got to zoom out from your calendar. A, are you having some joy? And then it's like, B, where is the time that I'm working on the things that are, in my business and where am I working on the things that are on or maybe a little bit of an experiment?
I love that. We're going to shift gears a little bit here. We'd like
Yeah.
to get to know you on a personal level here on the Scaling Up Success podcast. Are you ready for a little rapid fire action?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So you said you wrote a book, but what book are you reading though?
Ooh, I am actually, let me give you the name because it's really, I actually listened to it on Audible and I want to be able to give you the author. It's called Incognito by David Eagleman and it's all about the secret life of the brain.
Nice. Very
Yeah,
cool. Very cool. What was the first job you ever had?
I was a waitress.
Awesome. Very cool. How about, are you an early bird or a night owl?
I am an early bird. My husband's a night owl. So over the time, I feel like we might be early birds and night owls, which isn't great either, but I would say both.
I dig it. I dig it. If you had a superpower like the Avengers or the X-Men, like what's the one superpower you'd want?
I think the superpower would probably to be to give people more time. And what I mean by that is like, we always say like, gosh, if I had more time to work on this or that, I would give them the ability to kind of carve out time and it not be a problem. Like, oh yeah, I can create more time for you. Like you want to go on a vacation that you think you can't go on. Oh yeah, let's create some more time for you.
That's awesome. Cool. If you could have dinner with a historical figure, either living or deceased, who would that historical figure be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I would love to go back and be in a time where there were some really famous like philosophers. I had a philosophy minor in college, and I think about being able to like almost fly on the wall to Socrates or like some of those humans. I'd love to go back and just hear what some of those conversations and debates going on.
That's awesome. Do you have a bucket list travel spot you would still want to go to?
Oh, Ryan, my bucket list is so big. I like we literally schedule in travel as part of our joy, like small travel and
Yeah,
big travel. So th places on my list are Portugal, hopefully next year, and we love Europe, so I just love to backpack across it.
very cool. Very cool. Couple more for you. Like, what's your favorite go-to cheat meal?
Oh, cheat meal, I would say probably like steak and ice cream with a brownie. Like right next to each other, like that would be fabulous. Like a little sweet, a little like savory. And maybe some
I,
chips.
I dig it. Very cool. What's bumping on your workout playlist?
So I go to Pure Bar, which is so whatever is bumping on their playlist, because I need somebody to charge me $20 if I don't show up.
That's accountability if it's
It
in its purest
is.
form right there.
It
Very
is.
cool. Well, you absolutely crushed the rapid fire section. Thank you for being so open and transparent. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you could go back in time and give like yourself, your younger version of yourself, one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think it would be like, don't take life so seriously. I grew up to parents who were, blue collar, and my dad was always like, work hard. And that's actually like one of my greatest strengths. But when put into overdrive, it can be a weakness. And so I would go back and be like, make sure you work hard, but make sure you play hard. And it took me a good, 15 years in the workforce. And for me to sit on the couch and look at my husband and say, like, I'm miserable, I'm really burnt out, to figure out that lesson. So I could have saved myself a lot of time.
I love that. Very cool. Hey, what impact do you hope your work leaves on your industry?
Yeah, so I keynote speak about joy, but I also speak about the power of having good ripple effect. And I talk a lot about building teams and team culture and how are you showing up and contributing to that culture. And I hope my work creates a pretty incredible ripple effect. Like I just want people to go out and create their own ripple effect. And in turn, all of us like look at our ripple effect and be like, dang, that's a really big wave out there. Having good ripple effect would be the number one thing.
That's phenomenal. Lastly, as we continue to wrap this up for you, like, where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Ooh, I see myself, I almost envision myself like a little choo-choo train, like whoop, whoop. And so I envision myself like chugging down the tracks, like, and just going everywhere and speaking everywhere and creating joy and impact in all of those spaces and places. I started doing this just a couple of years ago. And so I feel like it's just tip of the iceberg. So watch out, my train is coming.
That's phenomenal. Lisa, even it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Scaling Up Success podcast today. Thank you so much for your time and definitely appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Ryan Van Orm signing off for the Scaling Up Success podcast. Until the next time, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on all of our channels across on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Thank you again to our sponsor, Synergist, for that sponsorship today. Until the next time, everyone, stay blessed and take care.